Are there still glaciers in the United States?
Yes, small glaciers exist throughout Alaska, within the Cascade Range of Washington state. Sporadically across the Rocky Mountains, and also in the Sierra Nevadas of California.
What was the Nazis' plan for Madagascar?
In 1940, after the French defeat at the hands of the Germans, the Nazis developed a plan to forcibly relocate European Jews to the French colony of Madagascar. This plan never materialized, however, and the Nazis continued the extermination of Jews throughout Europe.
Is Greenland really green?
In 982 CE, Greenland was named by its first colonizer, Eric the Red. Having been banished from Iceland, Eric the Red established a colony on Greenland, and gave it a pleasant-sounding name, in order to attract other colonists. In reality, Greenland is not very green. Though small coastal areas are habitable, most of the island is mountainous and covered by ice sheets. Greenland is an autonomous territory of Denmark.
How many times does lightning strike the Earth each year?
About 20 million bolts of lightning are generated in the atmosphere every year.
What world weather records does the United States hold?
The United States claims the world's highest surface wind, 231 miles 372 kilometers per hour peak gust in New Hampshire. World's greatest average yearly precipitation, 472 inches 1,200 centimeters in Hawaii. And the world's heaviest 42-minute rainfall, 12 inches 31 centimeters in Missouri.
What's the big red rock in the middle of Australia?
The big, red, sandstone monolith in the center of Australia is called Uluru. Its indigenous name, it was previously called Ayers Rock. It is the world's largest monolith, approximately 1.5 miles. 2.4 kilometers, wide and 1/5 of a mile, 1,100 feet 335 meters, high.
What is Oceania?
Oceania is the region in the central and southern Pacific that includes Australia, New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, and the islands that compose Polynesia, Melanesia, and Micronesia.
What is the largest office building in the world?
The United States is home to the largest office building in the world, the Pentagon, which has 3.7 million square feet, 343,730 square meters, of space under its roof. The Pentagon is home to the country's Department of Defense.
Which place in South America is part of the European Union?
Although not a country, French Guiana, lying just north of Brazil and one of the 26 departments of France, is part of the European Union. It uses the euro as its national currency.
How are hurricanes ranked?
Hurricanes are ranked on a scale of 1 to 5. With Category 1 hurricanes being the weakest and Category 5 being the strongest and most destructive. The damage caused by each category of hurricane ranks from 1. Minimal, 2. Moderate, 3. Extensive, 4. Extreme, such as Hurricane Andrew in 1992, to 5. Catastrophic.
How many time zones does China have?
Since China is such a large country, it should span 5 time zones. But the entire country uses one time 8 hours ahead of UTC.
What country in Africa has the world's highest minimum elevation?
Lesotho, located in the mountains of South Africa, has an absolute minimum elevation of 4,530 feet. 1,381 meters, above sea level in the valley of the Orange River. But almost all of the land in the country lies above 6,000 feet, 1,829 meters.
Is global warming causing the world's glaciers to melt?
Many scientists believe that greenhouse gases from human activities are directly causing glaciers in all parts of the world to melt and recede at an unprecedented rate. It is thought that by 2030 there will be no glaciers in Glacier National Park in Montana, in East Africa. Kenya's Lewis Glacier in Kenya has lost 40% of its size in just the last 25 years.
Where is the world's largest mountain?
Hawaii's Mauna Kea is the world's largest mountain. It begins on the seafloor and rises 33,480 feet, 10,205 meters. Mt. Everest only rises 29,000 feet, 8,839 meters. Mauna Kea's peak reaches 13,796 feet, 4,205 meters, above sea level.
What is the world's largest tropical rainforest?
The Amazon forest is the world's largest tropical rainforest. It occupies 1/3 of Brazil's land area and receives over 80 inches, 200 centimeters, of rain a year. The rainforest loses 15,000 square miles, 38,850 square kilometers, of forest each year because of clear cutting. The Amazon rainforest is home to about 90% of the Earth's animal and plant species and is a major producer of the world's oxygen.
What is a UNESCO World Heritage Site?
The United Nations educational, scientific, and cultural organizations. Stated purpose is to build peace in the minds of mankind. It is one of the most important agencies within the UN. A World Heritage Site represents our natural or cultural wealth. The most important landmarks in the world that should be shared with everyone. Because of the special significance of these places, they must be protected for us to see, so that we may pass on knowledge of our shared culture to future generations. They can be both physical places built by man, or natural wonders.
How many near-Earth objects is NASA tracking?
Approximately 1,100 near-Earth objects are tracked by NASA.
Why are there so many starving people in Ethiopia?
Droughts in the 1970s and 1980s, which were especially severe from 1984 to 1986, destroyed Ethiopian agriculture. Though relief food was shipped to Ethiopia, internal political corruption kept the food from reaching the starving victims. During the 1980s, approximately 1 million people died of starvation in Ethiopia.
What is the difference between GNP and GDP?
GDP, or Gross Domestic Product, is the value of all goods and services produced in a country in a year. GNP, or Gross National Product, is the total value of GDP plus all income from investments around the world. Per capita GDP is usually compared between countries.
If I keep walking in a straight line, will the Coriolis effect cause me to veer?
If your body were completely symmetrical, and no one's is, and neither leg were longer and you were walking on perfectly flat land, then yes, you might start veering due to the Coriolis effect.
What is the difference between a physical and a political map?
A physical map shows natural features of the land such as mountains, rivers, lakes, streams, and deserts. A political map shows human-made features and boundaries such as cities, highways, and countries. The maps we use in atlases and see on the walls of classrooms are typically a combination of the two.
When did Burma become Myanmar?
In 1989, the name of Burma changed to Myanmar when the military took control of the country. Following the president's resignation as a result of riots and national turmoil.
Where are the four colored seas, black, yellow, red, and white?
The four colored seas are not geographically associated with one another. The Black Sea is located near the Balkan Peninsula and is bordered by Turkey, Russia, and Ukraine. It is also the home of the port city of Odessa. The Red Sea is located to the south of the Black Sea. Between the Arabian Peninsula, Saudi Arabia, and Africa. The Red Sea has been a major trade route for hundreds of years and has been especially useful since the completion of the Suez Canal. The White Sea is in northern Europe. It is part of the Arctic Ocean and is a Russian sea. It lies to the east of Finland. The Yellow Sea is far to the east, between China and the Korean Peninsula.
How does a choke point choke a body of water?
A choke point is a narrow waterway between two larger bodies of water that can be easily closed or blocked to control water transportation routes. Though historically the Strait of Gibraltar, connecting the Mediterranean Sea and Atlantic Ocean between Africa and Spain, has been one of the world's most important choke points. The Strait of Hormuz gained significant attention during the Persian Gulf War of 1991. The Strait of Hormuz, bounded by the United Arab Emirates and Iran, connects the Persian Gulf to the Arabian Sea and, thus, to the Indian Ocean. It was feared that if Iraq controlled the strait, then most of the oil from the region could not be shipped out.
How many refugees are there?
There are approximately 8.3 million people who are classified as refugees, living somewhere outside of their home countries, because of deplorable conditions at home. Warfare, or government and societal discrimination and economic oppression.
Why is it hotter in the city than in the countryside?
Cities have higher temperatures due to an effect known as the urban heat island. The extensive pavement, buildings, machinery, pollution from automobiles, and other things urban cause this warmth in the city. Cities such as Los Angeles can be up to 5 degrees hotter than surrounding areas due to the urban heat island effect. The term comes from temperature maps of cities where the hotter urban areas look like islands when isotherms, lines of equal temperature, are drawn.
When did people start eating with forks and spoons?
Though introduced in the 15th century, forks and spoons did not come into common use in Europe until the 17th century. Prior to that time, people ate with their hands and a knife.
How far did the Islamic Empire spread?
At its widest extent, the Islamic Empire included most of northern Africa, Spain, and Portugal, the Balkan Peninsula, India, Indonesia, Kazakhstan, and the southern reaches of Russia. Islamic influence also spread east into western China. The areas that were under Islamic rule from the 7th through the 16th century CE still keep the religion as a major aspect of their culture.
What are the world's newest countries?
In the 1990s, over 24 new countries appeared on the map. These included 15 new countries that were created when the USSR broke up in 1991: Armenia, Azerbaijan, Belarus, Estonia, Georgia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Latvia, Lithuania, Moldova, Russia, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Ukraine, and Uzbekistan. The dissolution of Yugoslavia also created several new countries in 1991 and 1992: Bosnia and Herzegovina, Croatia, Macedonia, Serbia, and Montenegro, and Slovenia. In 1993, Eritrea became independent of Ethiopia, and Czechoslovakia dissolved into the Czech Republic and Slovakia. That same year, the Pacific Island countries of the Marshall Islands, Micronesia, and Palau all became independent. In 1990, Namibia split from South Africa to become its own country, while East and West Germany combined to become Germany.
What are ocean currents?
The oceans don't remain still, their water is constantly moving in giant circles known as currents. In the northern hemisphere, currents move clockwise, while in the southern hemisphere they move counterclockwise. Currents help to moderate temperatures on land in places like the British Isles, which are farther north than the U.S. Canadian border, by sending warm water from the Caribbean northeast across the Atlantic Ocean to northern Europe. A current known as the Antarctic Circumpolar Current circles the southern continent. The North Atlantic and North Pacific Oceans each have a large clockwise current, while the South Atlantic and South Pacific Oceans each have a large counterclockwise current.
Does a cashmere sweater come from Kashmir?
The Kashmir goats, which make the fine wool known as cashmere, do come from the Kashmir region in India, a disputed area not controlled by any one nation. This region, which is located in northern India bordering on Pakistan, is plagued by violence and unrest. In 1947 the British decided to split the colony of India into two separate countries, one Hindu, India, and one Islamic, Pakistan. The state of Jammu Kashmir has a mixed population of Hindus and Muslims, which has led to conflict within the region. India and Pakistan have waged 3 wars over this region, and sporadic violence continues today.
Where are the highlands?
The island of Great Britain is divided into highlands and lowlands along the TZXE line, which runs between Plymouth in the south and Middlesbrough on the east coast. To the southeast of this line lie the flat plains of England, while to the northwest lie the Scottish Highlands.
What is the largest island in the United States?
The island of Hawaii is the largest island in the United States at 4,021 square miles. 10,414 square kilometers. Puerto Rico is the second largest at 3,435 square miles, 8,897 square kilometers.
How was the Delmarva Peninsula named?
The Delmarva Peninsula, located on the east coast, contains all of Delaware and portions of Maryland and Virginia. The 180-mile, 290-kilometer, long peninsula was named by combining the abbreviations of each of those 3 states, Del, March, and VA.
Who else controls the price of gas besides oil producers?
There are many factors that influence the price of gas. Among them are the rising demand for fuel from developed countries such as the United States, new and growing demand from China and India, market speculation, and public policy. The refining industry, which is under government regulation, is also consolidated into the hands of a very few global refiners. This has the potential for removing competitive pricing.
What is the world's southernmost city?
Ushuaia, in southern Argentina, is the world's southernmost city. Ushuaia sits on Tierra del Fuego Island, south of the Strait of Magellan.
What is nuclear winter?
A nuclear winter is what would follow a large-scale nuclear war. Radioactive particles, dust, and smoke released into the atmosphere would create a large cloud over the planet, blocking out sunlight and reducing temperatures worldwide. Plants and animals would die due to the extremely low temperatures. An extended nuclear winter could cause the death of millions of people from starvation, cold, and other problems.
What percentage of people live in the megacities of the world?
Only 4% of the inhabitants of Earth live in gigantic urban areas. The rest live in areas with populations of less than 10 million people. 25% of the world's inhabitants live in urban areas with fewer than 500,000 residents.
Why did the Soviet Union invade Afghanistan in 1979?
The Soviet Union sent troops to Afghanistan in 1979 because it wanted to come to the aid of its ally, the Parcham faction, which was more moderate in its outlook toward moving the country towards communism. The Parcham faction had signed a treaty of friendship and cooperation with the USSR the previous year. The United States began to fund the Mujahideen resistance, who were opposed to both the Afghan government and the Soviet occupation. These same Mujahideen would later form the ideological core of the people who masterminded the attack on the World Trade Center in 2001. Between 600,000 and 2 million Afghanis were killed during the war, which lasted until 1989. Of the 600,000 Soviet troops who served in Afghanistan, 14,453 lost their lives and more than 469,000 became sick or were wounded. More than 5 million Afghanis were displaced and fled to Pakistan. Another 2 million Afghanis were displaced within their own country. seeking shelter from the violence of the war and the factional fighting that ensued.
Where is the biggest desalination plant in the United States?
The biggest American desalination plant is in Tampa, Florida. It has an output of 25 million gallons, 94.6 million liters, per day. This is a fraction of the largest plant in the world, the Jebel Ali plant. Located in the United Arab Emirates, it produces over 200 million gallons, 757 million liters, per day.
What is the windiest place on Earth?
Mt. Washington, New Hampshire, is the windiest place. In 1934, regular wind speeds were clocked at 231 miles, 372 kilometers, per hour.
Did Hitler create the Autobahn?
Though the first modern freeway system in Germany was begun in 1913, Adolf Hitler did create the Autobahn during the Third Reich, from 1933 to 1945. The Autobahn is a freeway system that includes 6,800 miles, 10,941 kilometers, of road across Germany. Though it is widely believed that there are no speed limits on the Autobahn, there are a few segments with marked speed limits.
Is a magnitude 10 the top of the Richter scale?
While the media often refers to the Richter scale as being on a scale of 1 to 10, there is no upper limit. Even though the strongest quakes are not as high as 10, it is incorrect to assume that a 7 is on a scale of 1 to 10 because the magnitudes are based on the energy released and it is a logarithmic scale.
Which state has the highest divorce rate?
Nevada, with 6.4 divorces per 1,000 people, leads the nation. The District of Columbia has the lowest rate at 1.7 per 1,000. And is followed by Massachusetts with 2.2 divorces per 1,000 people.
Where does Los Angeles get its water?
Not much of the water in Los Angeles comes from local sources. Most of it is brought from hundreds of miles away. Large aqueducts, man-made channels used to transport water, were built to carry water from Owens Valley, in east-central California, from the Colorado River, and from the rivers of Northern California, to Los Angeles. though this method has brought fresh water to a region that desperately needs it. It has also drained and damaged the ecologies that once depended on the water now being sapped from its supply.
Where are the active volcanoes in the United States?
Washington, Oregon, and California have many potentially active volcanoes. The most recent eruption in the United States was that of Mt. St. Helens in southern Washington state in 1980. Other volcanoes in the region, such as Mt. Shasta, Lassen, Rainier, and Hood could erupt with little warning.
Are mega-urban area populations growing?
Despite what we might think, of the top 20 large urban areas in the world, nearly half experience population growth of only 1.5%.
Why did Peru and Ecuador fight two wars in the 20th century?
When Ecuador split off from Gran Colombia in the 19th century, it signed a border agreement with Peru, defining its boundaries along the Marañón River. In 1941, Peru invaded Ecuador and occupied half the country for 10 days. Afterwards, a peace treaty was brokered and guaranteed by the United States, Brazil, Argentina, and Chile. The United States mapped the border, leaving approximately 48 miles. 78 kilometers, of a line in the Cordillera del Condor area unmarked. The area became a site for dispute in 1941, and again in 1995.
What was the world's first skyscraper?
Completed in 1885 in Chicago, Illinois. The Home Insurance Company building was the world's first skyscraper.
Which state has the most lakes?
Though Minnesota is known for its 10,000 lakes. The slogan on its license plates, "It is not the state with the most lakes." Neighboring Wisconsin has even more, about 14,000 lakes. But Alaska is the definite winner, with over 3 million lakes.
When did Canada have a transcontinental railway?
After nearly a decade of setbacks, Canada completed its first transcontinental railroad in 1885. The Canadian Pacific Railway opened Western Canada to settlement and greatly helped the city of Vancouver to grow.
How did Cuba become a communist country?
Having been an independent country for 57 years, the Cuban government, run by the dictator Fulgencio Batista y Salvador, fell to the communist leader Fidel Castro in 1959. Because of Cuba's communist government, the United States severed its relationship with Cuba, forcing the island to ally itself with the Soviet Union. In October 1962, the presence of this nearby communist country caused extreme terror. In the United States, when the USSR attempted to place nuclear missiles within Cuba. The Cuban Missile Crisis is thought to be the closest the Cold War ever got to a real nuclear war.
Where does the Tour de France begin and end?
The Tour de France changes its course each year. But the last leg is always along Paris's famous boulevard, the Champs-Élysées. The bicycle race is approximately 2,000 miles, 3,200 kilometers, long and takes 25 to 30 days to complete.
What is the only state with a diamond mine?
Arkansas is the only state with a diamond mine. Located in southwestern Arkansas, the mine is no longer in commercial production but is now a park. Crater of Diamonds State Park, that allows visitors to take any diamonds they find.
What is the National Geographic Society?
Founded in 1888, the National Geographic Society has supported exploration, cartography, and discovery and publishes the popular magazine National Geographic, the fifth most popular magazine in the United States.
What is the longest building in the world?
Catching a flight from Osaka, Japan's Kansai International Airport could involve a walk of more than a mile. It is 5,580 feet, 1.7 kilometers, long.
How many African countries are landlocked?
Only 15 of Africa's 47 continental countries have no access to seas or oceans. These include Botswana, Burkina Faso, Burundi, Central African Republic, Chad, Ethiopia, Lesotho, Malawi, Mali, Niger, Rwanda, Swaziland, Uganda, Zambia, and Zimbabwe.
How does a sextant help navigators?
In 1730, the sextant was invented independently by two men, John Hadley and Thomas Godfrey. Using a telescope, two mirrors, the horizon, and the sun, or another celestial body. The sextant measures the angle between the horizon and the celestial body. With this measurement, navigators could determine their latitude while at sea.
Who was Alexander von Humboldt?
Alexander von Humboldt, 1769–1862, was a German geographer who explored South America, Europe, and Russia. Von Humboldt traveled deep within the Amazon rainforests, developed the first weather map, and wrote a 5-volume encyclopedia in which he sought to describe all of human knowledge about the Earth. Von Humboldt was the world's last great polymath, one of encyclopedic learning.
What have been some of the most destructive floods in history?
In the United States, the failure of a dam in 1889 upstream from the community of Johnstown, Pennsylvania, killed 2,200 people. Some of the world's most catastrophic flooding takes place in China. A flood on the Huanghe River in 1931 killed 3.7 million people.
What is a cartel?
A cartel is an organization made up of businesses that band together to eliminate competition, collude to fix prices, and control supply and production of a product or service. In South America, the word refers to the drug cartels of Colombia. Most notably the Medellin and Cali cartels, both which were crushed by the Colombian government. Later, government members and lieutenants of former cartel operatives stepped in and created their own cartels. Today, they are still manufacturing and distributing cocaine and its derivatives into the United States, which is the biggest consumer of cocaine in the world.
How can I remember which way latitude and longitude run?
You can remember that the lines of latitude run east and west by thinking of lines of latitude as rungs on a ladder, latitude. Lines of longitude are quite long because they run from the North Pole to the South Pole.
What is a dike?
A dike is magma that has risen up through a crack between layers of rock. When this magma solidifies, it becomes very solid rock. If the rock around it is eroded, a dike can form great rock monoliths above the ground.
What is Zoroastrianism?
Zoroastrianism is a religion that began in present-day Iran about 1000 B.C.E. It is based upon the teachings of the prophet Zoroaster and is an ancient religion that some believe may have influenced the later religions of Christianity and Islam.
What is the bite of Bani?
Also called the Bight of Biafra, the Bight of Bani is a bay located in the Gulf of Guinea, near Cameroon. The word bight is Old English for bay.
How many African countries were colonized by Italy?
Italy established colonies in what are now Libya, Eritrea, and Somalia.
Why does Romania have so many orphans?
The draconian population policies of Romania, which forbade birth control and abortion and required women to have 5 children, led to the birth of far more children than could be supported by the country. The population policies were implemented by communist dictator Nicolae Ceausescu, who ruled from 1965 until his capture and execution in 1989. The result of his policies has been thousands of Romanian children living in orphanages. Elections were held in 1990 and Romania is now struggling to improve conditions.
How long have communists been in power in China?
China's Communist Revolution took place in 1949, and Mao Zedong became the country's first chairman. Communism has been the doctrine ever since.
What is Mardi Gras?
The Catholic festival Mardi Gras literally means Fat Tuesday in French. Parades, dancing, and carnivals are all part of this pre-Ash Wednesday celebration. Known as Carnival, it is very popular in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and New Orleans, Louisiana. The Brazilian festival is a significant source of tourism-related income for the country.
How wide is the Strait of Gibraltar?
The strait, which connects the Mediterranean Sea to the Atlantic Ocean between Africa and Spain, is 8 miles, 13 kilometers, wide at its narrowest.
What are some of the largest South Korean companies?
Samsung, Hyundai, LG, Lucky Gold Star, Hanjin Shipping. Daewoo, and Kia are South Korean companies with global brands. They are some of the largest companies in the world today.
Which country first granted women the right to vote?
In 1893, New Zealand became the first country to give women the right to vote.
What time is it in Antarctica?
People based on the many research stations of Antarctica generally. Observe Greenwich Mean Time, that is, the same time zone as London, England.
What language is spoken in the Maldives?
Dhivhi, an Indo-Aryan language, is spoken by the 300,000 inhabitants of the Maldives.
What are the northernmost, southernmost, easternmost, and westernmost cities in the United States?
Barrow, Alaska, is the northernmost, Hilo, Hawaii, is the southernmost, Eastport. Maine, is the easternmost, and Atka, Alaska, is the westernmost city in the country.
Does radiation from a nuclear plant stop at the 10-mile, 16-kilometer zone?
American nuclear power plants are required to create emergency planning zones within a 10-mile, 16-kilometer radius surrounding their plants. These imaginary 10-mile lines are not walls that hold back the effects of radiation, but simply a distance determined by emergency planners. In the event of an accident, the residents of the 10-mile, 16-kilometer zone might not need to be evacuated but could be advised to remain indoors with their windows closed. Nuclear plants also establish smaller zones of 2 and 5 miles, 3 to 8 kilometers, surrounding the plants, within which the risk of radiation exposure is much greater.
Which is farther east, Santiago, Chile, or Miami, Florida?
Even though it lies on the west coast of South America, Santiago, Chile, is actually farther east than Miami, Florida. Though it is common to envision South America as directly south of North America, South America actually lies southeast of North America.
What were the earliest maps?
There are many examples demonstrating that humanity has been interested in its surroundings since the beginning of recorded history. In fact, written on the walls of caves in Lascaux, France, are three dots indicating the brightest stars in the sky, which are estimated to have been drawn around 14,000 BCE. Neolithic wall paintings found in Çatalhöyük, Turkey, show an early city plan from around 7500 BCE.
What is a glacier?
A glacier is a mass of ice that stays frozen throughout the year and flows downhill. Glaciers are capable of carving rock with their weight and slow, steady movement. They are responsible for the stunning landscape of Yosemite National Park in California. Large glaciers that cover the land are also known as ice sheets.
What is the name of the currency of Botswana?
The South African country of Botswana, consisting primarily of the Kalahari Desert, uses the pula, which means rain, as their currency.
Did people bathe in bath?
The Roman baths found in Bath, England, were originally built on a Celtic holy site over a period of 300 years, beginning in 70 C. The structures include a hot bath, a tepid or medium bath, and a frigid bath complex. Though the ancient city lies buried beneath it, the modern city of Bath is also renowned for its hot springs, which once warmed the Romans and now offer a relaxing bath in this resort town.
How big was the Mongol Empire?
The Mongol Empire, under the reign of Genghis Khan, 1162 to 1227 C. Also spelled Chinggis Khan, and his son Ojedi Khan, 1186 to 1241. Became one of the greatest contiguous empires in world history. It would eventually stretch from what is now modern-day Korea and China in the east to Poland in the west, and to Vietnam and Oman in the south.
What is the European country most visited by tourists?
Over 76 million people visit France each year. Spain is the next most popular with 56 million visitors.
How did Australia get its name?
Long throughout history there remained an assumed, yet completely undiscovered land called Terra Australis Incognita, or unknown southern land. As early as the 4th century BCE, Aristotle believed that an extremely large continent, located in the southern hemisphere, lay undiscovered and would complete the symmetry of the land masses. For centuries, this unknown landmass remained a treasured legend and often appeared on maps in varied sizes and shapes. When the territory now known as Australia was discovered in the early 17th century, no one believed that this was the famed Terra Australis Incognita. During the early 17th century, the western coast of this territory was named New Holland and claimed for the Netherlands. In 1770 James Cook claimed the east coast of this territory for England and called it New South Wales. It wasn't until 1803 that Matthew Flinders circumnavigated this territory and proved that it was a continent and was the long sought after Terra Australis Incognita. Finally, in the early 19th century, nearly 2 centuries after having been discovered, this land was finally named Australia.
What is the most popular theme park in the United States?
Walt Disney World in Orlando, Florida, has more than 17 million visitors annually.
What are the equinoxes?
There are 2 equinoxes, one on March 21 and the other on September 21. On both equinoxes, the sun is directly over the equator. March 21 heralds the beginning of spring in the northern hemisphere and the beginning of fall in the southern hemisphere. September 21 heralds the beginning of fall in the northern hemisphere and the beginning of spring in the southern hemisphere.
Why don't Americans eat horse meat?
Most religions and cultural groups have some kinds of food taboos. Foods may be avoided entirely or may be avoided on certain days or during certain festivals. Religious food taboos include the avoidance of pork by Muslims and Jews and the avoidance of beef by Hindus. Cultural food taboos also play an important role. For example, Americans don't eat horse meat because it is a cultural food taboo, despite the fact that horse meat is a nutritional and edible type of food.
What is the highest point east of the Mississippi?
North Carolina's Mt. Mitchell is the tallest point east of the Mississippi River at 6,684 feet, 2,037 meters.
Which country has the lowest maximum elevation in the world?
The Maldives has a natural maximum elevation of only 7.5 feet, 2.3 meters, above sea level. The problem is that sea levels over the past 100 years are rising at a rate of approximately 9.75 inches. 20 centimeters, per year, which may make the country, or parts of it, disappear entirely. The 2004 Asian tsunami caused the ocean to completely cover parts of the Maldives.
What is the Mid-Atlantic Ridge?
We don't get to appreciate the beauty of this huge mountain range because it's located at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. With one exception, Iceland is a part of the ridge. The ridge is a crack between tectonic plates where new ocean floor is being created as magma flows up from under the earth. As more crust is created, it pushes the older crust further away. The new crust at the ridge piles up to form mountains, and then begins to move across the bottom of the ocean. Because the earth can't get larger as more crust is created, the crust eventually has nowhere to go except back into the earth. This is where subduction occurs.
How should we prepare for disaster?
Disasters can and do happen everywhere. You should prepare for disaster by having a disaster supply kit with supplies for you and everyone in your family available at home and work, as well as a mini kit in your automobile. It should include food, water, first aid equipment, sturdy shoes, an AM/FM radio with batteries kept outside of the radio, a flashlight, with batteries kept outside of the flashlight. Vital medication, especially prescription medication, blankets, cash, if the power and computers are down. Credit and ATM cards won't work, games and toys for children, and any other essentials. Contact your local chapter of the Red Cross for more information about disaster preparedness.
How long is a day?
A day is the time it takes the Earth to make one rotation, which is 23 hours, 56 minutes, and 4.2 seconds. We round this to an even 24 hours for convenience.
Which South American countries are members of OPEC?
Ecuador, 500,000 barrels/day, and Venezuela, 2.3 million barrels/day. Are both members of OPEC, Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. Bolivia and Brazil may be members in the near future.
How does geography influence politics?
Geography is a key component in many political decisions and actions. The borders of countries, location of natural resources, access to ports, and the designation of voting districts are a few of the many geographical factors that affect politics.
Mongolia's density is limited because only 1% of the Y is the Aral Sea shrinking.
The area of the Aral Sea, located on the border of Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, has been reduced in size by one-half since 1960, though it was once the world's fourth largest lake. Diversion of its feeder rivers for agricultural purposes has severely shrunken the lake. This shrinkage has exposed soil saturated with salt, which now destroys plants and vegetation across the nearby plains. Country can be used for agriculture, the remainder of the country is dry and used for nomadic herding. Mongolia was originally established in the 13th century, when Genghis Khan overtook and unified much of mainland Asia.
What was manifest destiny?
First used by John Lewis O'Sullivan in an 1845 editorial, manifest destiny was the phrase used to describe the assumption that American expansion to the Pacific Ocean was inevitable and ordained by God. The phrase was used to defend the annexations of Texas, California, Alaska, and even Pacific and Caribbean islands.
What is the Space Guard Survey?
The Space Guard Survey is an initiative by NASA to catalog all near Earth objects that are larger than 0.6 miles, 1 kilometer, in diameter. The survey assesses their potential intersection with Earth's orbital path.
What percentage of American households regularly give to charitable organizations?
Approximately 89% of American households give to charitable organizations. On average, they give $1,620, donating $295 billion annually altogether.
How big is the Sahara Desert?
The Sahara is the world's largest desert. It covers more than 3.5 million square miles, 9 million square kilometers, in northern Africa. The Sahara receives less than 10 inches, 25 centimeters, of rain each year but contains hundreds of individual oases. The elevation in the Sahara Desert ranges from 100 feet, 30.5 meters, below, to more than 11,000 feet, 3,353 meters, above sea level. There are people who live in the Sahara, mostly at or near oases.
Do oceans get more rain than land?
The oceans receive just over their share, percentage-wise, of the world's precipitation, about 77%. The remaining 23% of precipitation falls on the continents. Some areas of the world receive far more precipitation than others. Some parts of equatorial South America, Africa, Southeast Asia, and nearby islands receive over 200 inches, 500 centimeters, of rain a year, while some desert areas receive only a fraction of an inch of rain per year.
Who are the Magar?
Magyars are the predominant ethnic group of Hungary. The group originated in Asia, east of the Ural Mountains, and have a language much different from any other in Europe.
What is a fault?
A fault is a fracture or a collection of fractures in the Earth's surface where movement has occurred. Most faults are inactive, but some, like California's San Andreas Fault, are quite active. Geologists have not discovered all of the Earth's faults, and sometimes earthquakes occur that take the world by surprise. Like the one in Northridge, California. In 1994. When earthquakes occur on faults that were previously unknown, they are called blind faults.
What is a central business district?
A central business district, CBD, of a city is located downtown. Often where the city began, and is the primary concentration of commercial buildings.
What was the Potsdam Conference?
At the end of World War II, the United States, United Kingdom, and USSR met at Potsdam, Germany, from July 17 to August 2, 1945. For a conference to determine how to control Germany and other Eastern territories. The Potsdam Conference divided Germany and Austria into Soviet, French, American, and British zones of control.